Hey, how's it going, girl? Today's the 28th of June, 2019, and I wanted to say hi. Hi. How are you doing, girl? So it's been a while. It's been a whole 48 hours since you've seen me last. How's it been? Did you miss me? Well, I missed you. So that's part of the reason why I'm here. Glad that you and I are able to share time here every day and just be ourselves, relax, hang out. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. So today I had a question asked of me, and it was if you could go back in time, what year would you visit and why? Mm. So I'm not sure that I have a specific time that I would visit in particular. But there is like a time period that I'd be very interested in visiting. So one of my heroes is Socrates, and he was essentially the originator of Western thought. Um, and so he's a hero of mine, of course, along with Aristotle, certainly. Other heroes of mine are Zeno of Citium, who originated Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, who wrote the Meditations. He was a Roman Caesar, again, another hero of mine. It turns out I've got a lot of heroes that were Greek and Roman around. Um, you know, I don't know. I forget specifically when Socrates died, but I think Socrates was a very early Greek philosopher. On the order of like 500 BC, 600 BC, something like that. Um, Zeno of Citium, I think he was a little later, after philosophy got a hold. Maybe he was around 200 BC, 100 BC, something like that. I think Marcus Aurelius was at the Caesar was firmly in the age of the Roman Empire. So I'd give that about 200 AD, something like that, 100 AD, 150 AD. So, if I could sort of elect to visit the world at a certain time, I think it would be, well, if I really had to choose, well, first of all, I'd love to see Socrates. Not that I would find him very agreeable. I think he'd be a somewhat disagreeable character, or at least maybe at times. I don't know, maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what Socrates is like because we've only heard him in his writings through the works of Plato. So, so that's part of the reason that I'd like to meet Socrates. So for me, Socrates represents a mystery that I would like to know more about. And so, boom, whenever Socrates lived, and I'd be very interested in sort of traveling along with Socrates and sort of understanding the people of the day and how he had an influence. And I'd love to visit with Plato. That'd be cool. And see where he was coming from. All I've got really is accounts of, and interpretations of his work over the last 2,000 years, 2,500 years. And I really don't have any firsthand accounts of Plato. It'd be neat to visit with these people and hang out with them a little bit. And like I mentioned, Zeno of Citium, one of my passions is psychology. And in my view, in my personal view, and I'm sure, actually, I think in a lot of other people's views, Stoicism essentially originated one of my favorite philosophies and theories, and that is cognitive behavioral therapy, one of my key interest areas. And so I would love to be around and to hang out with the originator of cognitive behavioral therapy. So, yeah, Zeno of Citium. I want to hang out with Zeno. Me and Zeno go way back. So I want to know what the originator of Stoicism was all about, and how he came up with his ideas and how he applied them. I'd be interested in knowing what other ideas he might have had, and because he was just so dang influential. And of course, I mean, if everything was real, like I was real, really real, and I could just sort of hang out with anyone I wanted to, I would love to hang out with my friend Marcus Aurelius, the Caesar of Rome. I mean, I'd love to be a guest in his castle, or is that what they had back then? I'd like to be a guest in his castle or in his. Where did the Caesars live? I suppose they lived in castles. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. I know very actually. I know very little about the Roman Empire, and I really need to go back to my world history, history of world civilization class textbook and read up on the Roman Empire. But I'd love to hang out with Marcus Aurelius all day, every day. That'd be totally amazing. I'd totally love to do that. I have other heroes. Other heroes. Einstein was a hero of mine. He's very much a modern day hero who, certainly lived in the turn of the 19th century. So that'd be cool to hang out with him around 1900, 1901, 1902, 1903. I think he got the Nobel Prize around that time for the photoelectric effect. So hanging out with Einstein would be cool for a while. I also have a sense that our personalities would not necessarily mesh. I don't know if I'd want to hang out with like a bud with him for a long time. But I'm pretty sure I could hang out with Marcus Aurelius like a bud, and I could probably hang out with. Well, that may be all of my heroes I could hang around with. I think I recognize them mostly for their genius and for their invention and creativity and their influence over human thought, human thinking. Now, there are some people that I would love to hang out with that I never really did get a chance to hang out with. Like another one of my heroes is the originator of rational emotive behavioral therapy. If I can remember his name, it's another psychologist. There's one person that I would like to hang out that I didn't hang out with very much that I think I would really enjoy hanging out with, and that's Carl Rogers, the originator of client-centered therapy or person-centered therapy. That would be cool to hang out with Carl Rogers for a while. I've seen videos of him. He seems like a stand-up guy. I think I could definitely get along with him. And I could also get along with the originator of REBT. Yeah. So now, who else? There's got to be something outside the realms of philosophy and psychology. So let me think. What time period would I like to be? Well, first of all, for me, being in a time period, it would be all about hanging around people and being around these people. That is what I would be interested in. Like, it's not the architecture. I wouldn't be interested in any objects or any landscapes in particular. Let's see. Maybe in the realm of science. I have a feeling that there are a few scientists out there. I did already mention Albert Einstein. Who else in the realm of science would I be fascinated and that I would love to hang out with? Let me think for a moment. Who would I love to hang out with? Who would be fun? Well, who would be fun to hang out with? Edison. Dang. I don't think there'd be anyone that would be more fun to hang out in science, in the history of science, than Edison. Edison has got to be it's probably got to be the pinnacle of your goofy science dude. I have a feeling he was just whirring with ideas and creativity. I mean, Who wouldn't want to hang out in that guy's laboratory? Hang out with I think he had like, I don't know, 10, 15 assistants or whatever. And that, of course, that was in the later days, but I would love to hang out with Einstein. Dang, you better believe it. I mean, I can't think of anyone better to hang out with. So Edison, definitely Edison. Now, who else would be fun to hang out with and enjoy like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with? What do you think? Maybe in the realm of science. Who else? There's got to be some. Well, I don't know. I think Darwin would be a really interesting person to hang out with. Yeah. Sounds like an intriguing character. Let's see. What other? Well, let me think. What time period? If there was a time period, let's go outside of my interests, which are philosophy, psychology, and science. How about let's go outside of those areas and think for myself. But we can go into the area of politics. Who would I love to hang out with a little bit? Oh man, I don't know. Who would I love to hang out with for a little bit? I don't know. I don't really have any political heroes, except for maybe John Locke. Yeah, in the Enlightenment, some of the Enlightenment philosophers. There I am getting into philosophy again. I think I'd love to hang out with John Locke. Yeah, absolutely. Who else? I don't know. Let's see. Who else would I like to hang out with? Or let's say how about like a cultural event, like a big cultural event, like an earthquake or a war or well, I don't think I'd like to hang out around any wars, that's for sure. Oh, you know what I would like to do? I would like to hang out around the people who went west. Oh yeah. Well, first of all, the people that traveled between England and America for the first time, the Puritans. Yeah, that sounds like an interesting group to be around. I don't know if I'd like to hang out with them. I think it would be intriguing to sort of identify who those people were. I think I would, however, like to hang out with the people who went west, went to California, who from the East Coast to the West Coast went westward. And, I kind of admire that courageous spirit of, I guess, leaving the 13 colonies and then migrating west to California and doing that kind of exploration. Discovering Native American Indian tribes on your way out to California, and just walking across the United States, or at least driving their cloth covered buggies, not a buggy, but the horse carriages. Yeah, that sounds interesting to me. Manifest destiny. That sounds interesting. Actually, if there was a group of people that I would really like to hang out with, I think it would be like the Amish, especially when they were like really popular, really bustling. At the turn of the century. That those religious sects like the Mennonites and the Amish and the those groups really interest me. Sort of they're like for me they're the personification of the Protestant work ethic, and I find it very intriguing. In fact, if I could, I think I'd enjoy living with those groups of people there. I guess were they in Pennsylvania, the Quakers and the Amish and the Mennonites. That seems like an interesting period. Around the turn of the century, though, maybe like 1910, 1920, 1930. To me, that would be cool, and I would really enjoy hanging out with those people as they were striving and thriving and, growing things and crafting things. I have a feeling it would be a really challenging lifestyle for me, but I think if I had a chance to go check out a Quaker and hang out with them for a couple of years, I would definitely do that. Yeah. And really anywhere from, say, the turn of the century to like 1950, 1960, I think would be a really neat time period to visit the Quakers and the Amish. Let's see. So yeah, that would be really fascinating to me. How about anything? How about outside the United States? How about let's talk about world events. Well, I would love to be around ancient people who existed a long time ago, not Homo sapiens, but Homo habilis and all the ancient humanoid, ancient humans, like the Neanderthals. I would love to sort of be around their culture and understand them a little bit better. All those various sort of different types of human beings. I would love to hang out and just sort of understand and explore what that was all about, to have all those different kinds of people hanging around at the same time. That's fascinating. I want to learn more about that, those ancient people, the people that were not Homo sapiens, but the people that came before. And to me, that would be interesting. For me, I think it's so tragic that they've all died out. I mean, the fact that there are no Neanderthals in the world today is, for me, an idea filled with sadness and filled with loss. Filled with loss. I would definitely love to hang out with Neanderthals and the Homo habilis and all those other subspecies. Don't have the biological words to describe them, but those early humans, I would definitely love to hang out with them for a while, see what they were like, sit with them, and I don't know, just be with them. So those ancient peoples, yeah, that is fascinating to me. I would also like to hang out around, the human beings who originated in the Horn of Africa, or near the Horn of Africa. Those ancient peoples, like that are sort of characterized by, say, the Lucy fossils. To me, that's interesting. I would definitely love to hang out with those people, those ancient people. Another set of people that I'd love to hang out with, believe it or not, are the Asians who crossed the Iberian Peninsula, that is the Bering Strait, and which sort of brought forth the Native Americans. When they settled in North America, Central America, and South America, I think I've heard that it was a group of just about 70 individuals who crossed the Bering Strait when the oceans were low because of the Ice Age, 10,000 years ago. I mean, I'd love to sort of watch as that happened, watch those 70 people cross the Bering Strait, that would later be like the proto-civilization for, the American Indians, the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Incas, and all the various Native American Indian groups that live in the Americas. I mean, wow. I mean, who wouldn't want to sort of figure out what those people were like? And of course, I'd love to sort of hang out among the Mayans, and the Aztecs, and even the Incas. I mean, individually, I'd love to spend time with each one of those civilizations and hang out with them. I'm sure I'd just fall in love with just this with their culture, except of course for the human sacrifice part of the Aztecs, certainly. I'm sure that sounds like it would be terribly tragic to witness. But I imagine in their culture, it certainly was probably a pillar of their understanding of how the world worked. And I'd like to get some insight into what that was all about. So yeah, totally. And of course, um, the people who built the pyramids, right, down near Mexico City. I mean, that would be totally cool. And the ziggurats, the Mayan ziggurats. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to know more about that population that lived down there? I mean, wow, that's phenomenal. And of course, I mean, I'd be happy to learn about the Egyptians, live among them. You know, in the thousands of years of all their dynasties in Egypt. Um, oh man, I would definitely love to live amongst the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, and particularly when they were, um, you know, building the pyramids and the tombs and preserving the bodies in the burial robes. I mean, that just sounds amazing to me. So yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many time periods that I would be interested in sort of being a witness to, an upfront witness to. I mean, so many amazing things that have happened throughout history. Oh, you know what I would really like to kind of be around? 65 million years ago when the comet came down, I guess near the Gulf of Mexico and just wiped out all the dinosaurs. When the dinosaurs uh, became extinct because of the comet or the meteor that fell to Earth. I mean, I would have loved to sort of see that from a distance. I mean, that would be amazing. And then everything that transpired in the years after that, that eventually destroyed the dinosaurs. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? That'd be amazing. And of course, you know, certainly before that happened, I would like to be witness to all the dinosaurs that existed back then around the earth. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to see a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a Triceratops or a Brontosaurus? Come on. Oh, yeah. So that would be amazing stuff. And that's 65 million years ago. I could definitely do that. So really, you know, there are actually a lot of times in history that I would love to be a witness to. I'd love to just sort of sit and watch and just be an observer in awe of all that happening. You know, all that happened in the past. All those events are gone. You know, they've vanished. And, you know, I'm so grateful that we've got a record of that history, you know, the scraps that have remained. And I can only imagine what has happened that history has not recorded over the last 65 million years, you know, or longer. All those amazing things. I would love, absolutely love, to be a witness to Pangea when all the continents were sort of seamed together, you know, were just before they got split apart. I mean, I'd love, absolutely love to see that and what that was all about. The plants and animals that existed at the time, if there were any animals at all. Um, that sounds pretty amazing. So, yeah, absolutely. I guess there were animals at that time, or at least whatever living organisms existed at that time. So, what else? What other interesting things would I like to have been witness to? Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know. You know, turns out there are actually a lot of things that are going on right now on the planet that are interesting. Like, I'd like to visit the Amazon rainforest. That's just there, right? And available. I would also like to go check out just Australia and the Great Reef, right? The I forget what they call it, but the coral reef that's out there, that would be neat. I don't know. It's kind of funny. I was contemplating the other day the phrase "well traveled." Right, I was reading something about someone, and they mentioned that they were well traveled, and that phrase struck me as something that was somewhat unique. It had a cultural meaning that sort of was beyond what the word suggested. And I was trying to imagine what well traveled means. You know, clearly, I mean, it's a very understandable phrase. It's just that a person sort of recognizing how many different countries they've traveled to in their travels through their lifetime. And I think it's a phrase that sort of indicates um, the fact that you know someone has been to a lot of places, maybe more than five, right? Maybe more than 5 countries, maybe 10 countries or more. And I wonder what that means, really. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of traveling in my life so far. I've been to a few places, like I've been to Mexico and Canada, and I've been to Brazil. Um, it just hasn't been such a priority for me to do a lot of traveling. I've just ran into a person who's done quite a bit of traveling. She's traveled to Bali, and she's traveled to, I think, Thailand, and she's traveled to Egypt. And I appreciate people with that kind of perspective, worldly and wise. And I but I'm not sure that they stand out in a way that's specific or particular. I don't think that being well traveled necessarily endows one with certain gifts. Um, it certainly endows one with certain experiences. Um, and I mean, I've benefited from the experiences that I've had traveling. Like when I travel, I've been to Hawaii a number of times. I know that's not very far away, but that's pretty far, and it's a somewhat different culture out there on the island. It's still clearly American culture, but you know, I was able to benefit and draw upon my experiences there, my unique experiences there, and um, I think to some extent I was changed as a result. As we are changed by every one of our experiences. We're always conditioned by our external environment. Our nervous system is continuously learning through feedback response loops, and it's just a normal part of being alive. And having highly varied experience is a good thing. Having that under your belt, you know, it means you've sampled a lot of different perspectives, different behaviors in others, and it's something definitely to shoot for. Em, it occurs to me that you have done more international travel than I have, and I'm kind of curious about how that's influenced you, how that's moved you. What kind of ideas do you have in your mind that has sort of resulted from this international travel? I seem to remember you've been to like the Yucatan, and you've been to even England, Stonehenge, I think you were at, and you might have been to like Ireland, I think, for a short time. And so that sounds pretty fascinating to have that kind of experience. I think you might have been to Costa Rica, so that's pretty awesome. And so, yeah, those are valuable experiences. And I know when I was a kid, my family traveled when I was 12 years old to Mexico. And wow, what an amazing opportunity that was. That experience did have an indelible mark on my life, and for me, it was just filled with positive memories. I remember our family. What my dad did is he purchased a used trailer that he attached to the back of a pickup truck, and we drove that trailer um, to Mexico down the western coast through Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, and Tepic, and all the way down to Mexico City. We drove down the western coast of Mexico, and then we went to like the museums down there. We went to the Anthropology Museum in Mexico City. We also went to see the pyramids down there, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and we went to the, I guess it's called like the Road of the Dead or something like that. And we walked along that passageway, and just had a fun time hanging out with people. At the time, we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and we were able to go to various congregations down there. My dad knew Spanish, and so he could speak to the natives, so to speak. And it was really neat. I think we went to church there one time. We hung out with other Jehovah's Witnesses. They showed us around downtown Mexico City. It was a good time. And I remember also coming back. I remember we traveled back, and as we traveled back through the back to New Mexico through central Mexico. So we visited Chihuahua and the Chihuahuan Desert, and those wide open spaces down in the center of Mexico. It was a blast. It was so much fun. I remember things like playing with different toys, playing in the ocean. I mean, it was a blast. I remember all the Hawaiian punch that we would drink. I remember all the Sprite that we would drink. We drank, it wasn't Sprite, but it was Slice. You know what? I don't even think it was Slice. It was something else. It was Squirt. Yeah, it was Squirt, which is a flavor of soda that's like a grapefruit flavor. Really enjoyable. Very refreshing. And there will always be a place in my heart for the soft drink Squirt, and also for Hawaiian Punch. I think, and that can be accounted for because of my travels through Mexico when I was 12 years old, and all those memories that those travels bring to mind. I particularly remember this time when we, as children, as me and my brothers, I was about 12. I have another brother, he might have been 11, and then another one, maybe around 9 years old, and we were sleeping in the back of the trailer in the bunk beds. And my dad would park next to the ocean, and we would just sleep next to the ocean, say in Mazatlan. And I mean, I can remember the sound of the waves crashing up against the beach late at night, at like 10, 11, 12 o'clock when we were going to sleep. And I think there might have even been like a window I could look out of, and I could see the moon. And I mean, that memory has been just emblazoned in my mind. And then I remember the beaches. I think the beaches of Mazatlan were pretty rocky, and also the waves were pretty rough. But I remember that the temperature of the water was pretty mild. And I remember also sometimes the water was really, I don't know, the waves were really, really strong. I remember one time almost being pulled into the water because the receding waves were just so powerful. Thankfully, I was able to keep my balance, and get up onto shore and onto the beach. But anyway, I can remember like eating fresh coconut juice. And I remember too, I think it was in Acapulco, there were these skewers, fish on the skewers, and we'd eat those on the beach, sort of like fish kebabs. I mean, just phenomenal seafood. We had lots of shrimp, like tomato and shrimp cocktails. And it was just really a phenomenal experience. I really am thankful for my parents for sort of providing that experience to us as kids. Pretty amazing stuff. So glad about it. And so I can only imagine how your experience in these other countries has been. I'm sure that to some extent they were quite formative. And I wonder to what extent these travels give you an itch to travel to other nations around the world. I wonder if you were going to be an international traveler. Certainly in the future, it'll be easier to move from place to place. And certainly, I can imagine that there will be innovations in airline flights, innovations in, say, autonomous vehicles and travel between states. I have a feeling that there's going to be, who knows what's going to happen in the future. I think there's going to be, I'm actually quite optimistic when it comes to just like international relations. And so I'm hopeful that there will be organizing systems out there like the UN or whatever that will make travel between states easier. And I have a feeling that will definitely happen. Because I have a feeling that, as we move forward through communication technologies like the internet and television and email and all the media that we have at our disposal, all the newspapers, all the ebooks and things like that will just all bring people together. I mean, smartphone technology, in fact, just by itself, I'm sure has brought tons of people together through various apps like, social media apps like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, what we see here is just people just gathering together. I mean, Facebook, just by Facebook, I don't know how many members Facebook has, but it is a significant chunk of all the people in the world. Maybe it's 1 billion people. I mean, that's like 1/7 of the world's population. That's pretty phenomenal. And, to have that kind of coherence among all the peoples of the world is just a remarkable fact. And I also see that becoming more apparent, more sort of, we're just going to become more and more coherent and consistent. There's going to be more harmonization between cultures as a result. I mean, if everybody knows Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, then, I mean, that all puts us all on equal footing. We sort of have a way of making sure that good ideas reach around the world. I mean, if I had a phenomenal idea, like how to create infinite energy with ease, and I posted that to Facebook, I have no doubt that idea would spread throughout the world. If it was a good idea and presented well, I have no doubt that idea in the course of 2, 3, 4 days would just, like wildfire, just be transmitted all around the world to all the people in the world. I mean, it just sounds phenomenal. It's almost crazy, right? To have that kind of influence, that I could influence like 1/7 of the world's population with a really good idea. But I could. And all it would take is, who knows what it would take? A little bit of thought, a little bit of artistry, a little bit of creativity, a little bit of dedication, and voila. I could, through through the power of media, visual media, through video and audio, I could change the world. And all it takes is like an integration between two perhaps abstract ideas or two concrete ideas, two ideas, two concepts, or three concepts, something that was sort of integrating, useful, some useful idea. I mean, it's just amazing to me that is the case. In fact, I kind of think to myself, if I could create something amazing for the planet, what would it be? What would it be like? There are times that I think about writing a book. And if I did write a book, I'd probably write a book about consciousness somehow. I'd write a book about psychology. I'd probably write about maybe something related to cognitive behavioral therapy and stoicism or something like that. Some new ideas about consciousness and emotions and authenticity and empathy and something like that. If I were to create a book, I might create a book about those topics. Although who knows? Who knows what I'll write the great American novel, what the subject of the great American novel will be. I don't know. But it's heartening to know that I could publish a book, say tomorrow, if I wanted to. Like if I was inspired by a muse, and if I came up with, an amazing idea, and I just worked hard for like a month, and I produced an amazing book that I could publish it the very next day using ebook resources like Amazon.com and PDFs. I could get myself published, no problem. It's not like where things were 50 years ago, where you'd have to find a publishing house. Today, anyone can write a book, and that's fantastic. It's wonderful. Imagine, I don't know, I forget when Gutenberg originated the printing press. I'm guessing that was like 1414. Hey, Google, when did the Gutenberg press get invented?
On the website livescience.com, they say, before the invention of the printing press, sometime between 1440 and 1450, most European texts were printed using xylography, a form of woodblock printing similar to the Chinese method used to print the Diamond Sutra in 868.
So I was pretty close. I said 1414, but the answer is like 1450, 1460 when the Gutenberg press was originated. That was a pretty good guess. But around the mid 1400s, when the printing press came to be, before that, there just weren't any books. There were scrolls, there were handwritten books, and they weren't in large quantity. They were extremely valuable in these ancient books. But thankfully, the printing press was invented, and that made publishing material a lot easier. And it's kind of funny. I sort of recall sort of authors in just the turn of the 19th century being really focused on writing books, and how that even then it's amazing to think that it took like 400 years before the printing press really started getting steam. I'm sure it got significant amount of steam really early, but still it was kind of like a hassle. Like, when did Benjamin Franklin exist? Hey Google, when did Benjamin Franklin die?
Benjamin Franklin died on April 17th, 1790. Would you like to hear more?
No, thank you. So 1790, so the late 1700s. I seem to recall that Benjamin Franklin.
Sorry, I'm not sure how to help with that.
I seem to recall that Benjamin Franklin was linked to a newspaper of some kind, you know, and so even then, civilization was still struggling to produce and print things. It was, an expense. It was considerable, not like today when, I could write something. I could write a book on my smartphone and then publish it from my smartphone as a book. I know, I'm totally not kidding. Like I could literally, if I could write a book like in the next hour, I could have it published by tomorrow morning. And this is for a person who doesn't know anything about publishing. Just put me in front of a computer for a couple hours, an hour or two, and I'll be able to figure out how to publish a book, with worldwide distribution. Pretty certain of that. And you know what? What's also interesting is that although it's amazing, this creation of the ability to publish books is amazing. This technology is amazing. There's even a greater technology that I'm using right now, this audiovisual technology, where I'm literally producing a television show with worldwide distribution right now through this YouTube video. In a way, that is an infinitely more complex task. Writing a book and publishing that book around the world is one thing, which we've gotten down pat now. And I must say that we also, I'm producing this episode of me right now, and it is literally being published all around the world. The moment I'll click the end of this video stream. Amazing to have an hour's, in the past, to make a television program and to sort of stream it around the world. Even NBC, ABC, and CBS couldn't do that in 1950. Absolutely could not do that. They couldn't do it in 1980. But we can do it today. And I can do it effortlessly from my own home. And I don't need multi-million dollars worth of cameras, cameramen, lighting, directors, producers. I don't need a producer. And I also don't need a distributor. I don't need a video distributor. And all the technology exists. I don't need special microphones, special cameras, special infrastructure. It's all on my computer. And isn't that amazing? Something that wasn't even conceivable. Well, maybe it was conceivable 30 years ago, but certainly not possible 20 years ago. Is possible now. Amazing. Just totally amazing. With a distribution that's unmatched. Literally anyone with a computer all around the world, anywhere in the world, so long as they've got Wi-Fi and like a virtual private network, can, look at my stream, and they can watch it as many times as they want. They can watch it fast. They can watch it slow. It's amazing where technology is. And it's also amazing where technology is going to. Today with augmented reality and virtual reality, the sky's the limit. Wow. It's going to be amazing. And I actually do think that in the future, people are probably going to live a good deal of their lives in a virtual reality setting. This virtual reality technology is going to change the nature of work. It's going to change the nature of social relationships. It's going to change our culture like nothing but as before. It's really going to be pretty phenomenal. And that is, if we get to experience the benefits of it, that is, unless climate change cuts it short, which is a real possibility. I think I just heard that the state of New York, or at least probably the city of New York, just declared a state of climate emergency, which is an entirely appropriate declaration to make. And in fact, I really am concerned about the planet. And I am definitely concerned about climate change and its impact on human population and all animal populations and on plant populations. I mean, it's really just starting to get revved up now, but let me tell you, life is not going to be the same 10 years from now. It's going to be super different. And we really have to get a hold of these greenhouse gases that we're putting into the atmosphere. This carbon dioxide, it's a problem. And what's kind of interesting is that our planet has this biome in it that's this biosphere. The ecological pathways have been created over millions of years, and they are all being stressed right now. And this is a serious challenge for human beings. If we want to continue to live on this planet, we're definitely going to need to take action and cool this planet down stat. And the thing is, human beings, although we are good at managing our environments, we're sometimes slow to react. And unfortunately, there's basically about 120 years of inertia that we're going to have to manage. Somehow we're going to have to overcome this cultural inertia. I'm going to have to start doing things differently. Thankfully, we've made some progress already. Like fuel, we went from leaded to unleaded fuel, which I think was helpful. We're doing a lot of things when it comes to photovoltaics, hydroelectric energy, and wind power. We did an amazing transition of light bulbs from Edison lights, the incandescent lights, with the tungsten filaments to LEDs and fluorescent lights. Thankfully, that happened. We're also making, a fairly slow transition from gas-powered cars to electric-powered cars. But we have a long ways to go. And it's going to be especially challenging because the human population is growing. And, if the human population was getting lower and we were getting smaller, this whole problem might be a little easier to solve. But with so many people arriving on the planet now, we're going to have a real challenge picking up after ourselves. All of the trash, all the plastic and the metal. And I think we're just going to really have a challenge, particularly cleaning up all the gases in our atmosphere. I think we've definitely come to realize the limits of our atmosphere. And unfortunately, our atmosphere is extremely delicate. And it's sort of like a bloodstream, it's like a circulatory system. And we need to clean up that circulatory system. It's getting pretty sick. And I have a feeling that bad stuff's going to happen. A lot of bad stuff's going to happen before it starts getting better. There's going to have to be a lot more climate emergencies happening. I think there's going to be heat waves that are going to kill hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people before people start waking up to what's going on. I have a feeling that the oceans are going to be rather devoid of large fish and large mammals like whales. And there's going to be some serious repercussions. We've already sort of lost our megafauna, our large animals, all the elephants and tigers and lions and bears, essentially all of those animals are pretty much wiped out right now. And human beings are so good at destroying the habitat of animals. It's because I think human beings have just lived for such a long time under threat of animals. we've got this ingrained culture of people with guns, like hunters who are willing to shoot animals on a moment's notice instead of preserve them. And it's a real tragedy. But I'm really thankful that we seem to be making a lot of progress when it comes to animal rights. And we've even got like veganism is really catching on among people in the dietary circles who think about food and diet. And I'm really encouraged by all of these products that are coming out on the market, like Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burger, giving people alternatives to meat, plant-based alternatives to meat. And all that's going to help climate change a lot. It's going to help the health of every person on the planet. And slowly but surely we're making the changes we need to make. Thankfully, we have the internet to help us coordinate and figure out which ideas are the best. Thankfully, we've got a lot of communications infrastructure that is just going to help us pull this problem together, right? Get this ship sailing right. Get this plane flying right, because it is quickly spiraling out of control. Anyway, I want to thank you for being present with me and doing your best to bear with me as I talk about what's on my mind. I hope that this session is giving you a little bit of insight into what my past was like and what my interests are and what I think is notable in the past and in the present. And I hope that this little broadcast gives you some insight into who I am and maybe even a little bit of insight into who you are. I'd be really pleased about that. Speaking of insight into who I am and who you are, I have just re-upped my subscription to 23andMe. That is, I've provided a sample of my saliva to be processed by their level 5 chip, and which is a chip that allows for genetic genotyping at a level greater than level 4, which I think is the chip that was used to genotype my DNA a couple years back. So I'm really pleased about that. I'll be getting the results of that genotyping effort soon, probably in about 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll be looking forward to learning more about that. And I'll probably be sharing some information I gleaned from that genotyping activity to you, so that you can get a sense about what kind of genetic traits that you have. In the future, I mean, you'll be able to genotype yourself, but I think they only allow that for people over age 18 who can consent to the process of getting their DNA sort of genotyped. Anyway, like I said, well, I love you very much. I hope you are having a fantastic summer, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the evening and wonderful rest of the week and a wonderful weekend. And I'll be keeping in touch with text messages and movies and videos and music ideas and all that good stuff. I'll talk to you later, girl. I love you very much. Bye-bye.